After reading over 142 books on leadership, I discovered they all boil down to the same 3 ideas. And it was only after following these 3 ideas that I went from making $38,000 a year to a 6-figure promotion without having to lick my boss's shoes. So in this video, I'll break down the 3 promotion driving habits every manager should know and how to use them in a way that stops you from being overlooked and starts getting you promoted. In my experience, most managers think that taking ownership makes them promotable, but what if it's the reason they're stuck? Leadership books like Extreme Ownership love to scream about this concept, and they're not technically wrong, but most managers make this massive mistake and take it too far. Let me show you what I mean. This is your team's load, and every time you jump in to fix something like missed deadlines, a sloppy presentation, team drama, you're not leading, you're adding weight. You tell yourself you're being helpful or responsible or being the glue, but here's the problem. If your team only moves when you're carrying everything, you're not leading, you're lugging. Now, watch this. When you say, "You've got this, here's what done looks like," or "What would you try first?" or "I want you to handle this," you're still being responsible, but now they're actually capable. And that's the shift that leadership actually promotes. Because the people who rise fast, they're not the ones carrying the most. They're the ones building the teams that carry the most without them. And that's the difference between looking helpful and being seen as someone who builds a capable team. And that's what gets you promoted. So how do you do that? After reading the book Multipliers, you can use a proven system to do just that. Here's some simple steps to turn the multipliers concept into a promotion playbook. Step number 1, shift from rescuing to raising. Next time you have an employee that comes to you with a problem, instead of jumping in to fix it, you need to ask, "What would you recommend?" or "What would you try first?" Because when you develop them to actually think and not just fix their problems, it shows leadership you can run something bigger than your own desk. Step number 2, spotlight wins in a promotable way. Once a week, you need to highlight a team member's contribution in a public setting, whether it's a meeting or a Slack update or a wrap-up email, but don't just say "great job," tie it to a skill. Man, I'm proud of Priya this week for the great work she did at the deadline. Her organization was the reason we got this done on time, and it kept us on track. That's how you build a team that reflects well on you. Promotable leaders don't just get results. They grow talent leadership wants to keep. And then finally, step number 3, build a trail leadership can't ignore. You want to track these moments, create a simple doc or a Notion page, who did what skill it showed, and what impact it drove. That becomes your proof you're not just running projects, you're raising leaders. Think of this like your evidence file so that when promotion time comes, they don't just see your name, they see what you've built. But honestly, here's the frustrating part. Even if your team is thriving, you can still get passed for promotion. You hit your numbers, your boss loves you, you're doing everything right, and yet someone else leapfrogs you. So what's going on? Why do just decent performers get promoted while top performers get stuck? Believe it or not, this happened to me early in my career, and I'll show you what book helped me overcome this. Back when I was a store manager trying to get promoted, I genuinely thought I was the obvious choice. My store was top performing, other managers came to me for advice, and I had a reputation as someone people wanted to work for. Then there was Aaron. Aaron's store was a mess, he underperformed, complained loudly, and half the management team said they would quit if he got promoted. So I wasn't worried. I figured results and respect would win out. But on company-wide meetings, Aaron did one thing that I didn't. He spoke up. Loudly, often, whether or not his ideas stuck, he made sure he was seen. And then the next thing I knew, I was getting a text late at night saying, "Congrats on the promotion, Aaron," and I felt sick. The floor felt like it fell from underneath me, and that's when I learned the hard truth. Being great at your job just isn't enough. Being invisible is why average performers get promoted, while top performers stay stuck. If leadership doesn't see you as strategic, you just don't exist. So how can you make sure you're extremely visible for your next promotion? That's exactly what the book Power breaks down. It's not about titles, it's about how influence actually flows inside your company. The people who get promoted, they're not always the best, but they're the ones who become useful to the people in power. So how can you actually do this without kissing ass or pretending to be someone that you're not? Here's how to use the Power Playbook to make yourself visible and valuable in a way that leadership just can't ignore. First, we need to find the people who matter. Think of 3 people at your company who are involved when someone gets promoted, even if they're not your direct manager. Could be a senior director, a team lead, someone who always shows up in decision meetings. And if you don't know who they are, ask around or start watching who gets invited to the big conversations. Because if the people in power don't know your name, you're not in line, you're just invisible. And then step number 2, we gotta figure out what they're trying to fix. What are they working on that's messy or annoying or high stakes? Is it a project that's behind, a goal that's getting a lot of pressure? You don't need to be the expert. You just need to find one place where you can help make progress. That's how you stop being just helpful and start being seen as indispensable. And step number 3, be useful in a way that's visible. Don't just do the work in the background. Offer a fix, share something helpful in a meeting, ask to own a small part of what they're dealing with, then talk about it. Not in a look at me type of way, just enough so that the right people know that you're not just doing your job, but you're stepping up. Because as frustrating as it is, power doesn't promote talent, it promotes leverage, and that's what you're building. And then finally, step number 4, keep track of who saw it. Every 2 weeks, ask yourself, who saw me solving problems outside my lane? Did anyone who matters see me making things better? If you keep answering no, you're doing good work in the dark. And that's why people aren't seeing you as next in line. But by asking these questions, you stop wondering why you're not getting picked and start knowing exactly when you're being seen. But here's the thing, even if the right people see you, one mistake can blow your shot, and most managers do this without even realizing. So how can you avoid this costly mistake so you don't miss your promotion? Let me show you what this mistake actually looks like and why it keeps even high performers stuck in place. I want you to think about riding a bike. In low gear, your legs are spinning like crazy, tons of effort, fast movement, but hardly any distance. That's most managers, slammed with meetings, instant replies, task after task. Now, picture shifting into high gear. Same pedaling and same energy, but now every push moves you further. That's leverage and strategy, and that's how leadership scales. Most managers live in low gear. They're busy, reactive, and constantly on, but nothing they build lasts past Friday. Leadership doesn't see long-term value, they just see motion. And motion doesn't equal promotion. In Cal Newport's book, he calls this deep work and says it's the only kind of effort that creates lasting results. Everything else, just motion. And if you're not carving out space for that kind of work, you're not just stuck, you're forgettable. So how can you make sure you're doing high gear work to get promoted? Here's how to shift out of grind mode and start doing the kind of work that actually gets you promoted. First, you need to block out 2 90-minute deep work sessions every single week. This is your high gear zone. Pick times where you won't get pinged or pulled into meetings. Early morning, late afternoon, whatever works best for you, but you gotta defend it like it's a meeting with your own boss. Because people who protect strategy time don't just look focused, they look like the leader who thinks ahead. Second, use that time to build one long-term asset. No tasks, no catch-up, build something that creates value without you. A playbook your team can use, a system that saves hours, a strategy deck that moves the business forward. If it doesn't last beyond a week, it's not high gear. That's how you start creating things that outlast your week and what makes you look ready to run something bigger. Finally, make that work visible. Once it's done, share it. Not in a braggy way, but just a simple post in Slack or an update in your next one-on-one with your boss or a walkthrough in a team meeting. Something like, hey, I built this to save us time on this. Here's how we're going to use it. This is how you start to be seen as a high-value team member that needs to be promoted. Because if no one sees it, it didn't happen, and leaders don't promote ghosts. But even with all this, you might still feel like you're stuck, and it's okay, don't worry. So was one of my clients, Devon, when I first met him. After he applied these ideas and a few more that I taught him, he doubled his income. So in this next video, I'll show you the 3 habits that helped him land 4 promotions in 2 years, and the mindset that made leadership say, that's the guy we want.